This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's edition of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Adam the Jock Straczynski. On today's show, we've got a mammoth show for you. A lot of fallout from the Royal Rumble, a lot of news, a lot of rumors, a lot of stuff surrounding WrestleMania. We're going to get into all of that at the back half of the show, so you'll want to stick around for that. Doing it with me, as always, breaking it all down like it's a table that was set up by Devon Dudley. He's the one, he's the only, he is the Doc John Macaroon. What's up, cuz? Great week of wrestling, huh?
It was. Man, the Royal Rumble lived up to the billing. Yeah, maybe we could have disagreed with where certain matches were placed, but by and large, we got what we needed to see, and I can't wait to break it all down. Now, WWE is set up for the road to WrestleMania, and things are looking great. Now in AEW, they got a little catching up to do because WWE has a lot of the momentum to start 2023, but AEW doing their best to stay in the mix, putting on quality matches and elevating feuds. So absolutely, it's going to be a great week of professional wrestling moving forward. And this week's podcast, I can't wait to break it all down. So what did you think of the Rumble?
I thought the Rumble was good. I was a little bit bored, honestly, with a couple of the matches. Really, the singles matches that we had, the Bray Wyatt match, the Bianca Belair and Alexa Bliss match, I was bored by those. I don't think they did a good enough job kind of filling in that gap that they had to basically entertain you with. I thought the Men's Royal Rumble, I thought it started a little bit slow. I thought it got more interesting as it went on, and I thought it ended with probably the two best guys being involved in it at the very, very end. But getting to that point, to me, it was kind of like a little bit of a slugfest there. Now, you look at the women's, I thought the women's was highly entertaining. I thought the women's Royal Rumble was fantastic. Probably one of the best women's Royal Rumbles we've had in a long time. And it was all capped off. It was all capped off with a fantastic conclusion to the Bloodline storyline, with Sami Zayn eventually turning on Roman Reigns, kind of like we had thought, we had speculated. Overall, I thought it was a very good Royal Rumble. I thought this one was much better than last year's Royal Rumble. What did you think?
Yeah, last year's was a mess. I mean, people have started to do documentaries about Shane McMahon and how he wanted to involve himself with Brock Lesnar, how it was messy, how morale was really low with the booking and the constant changing. This one seemed to flow a lot better. And you're absolutely right. Starting with the Men's Royal Rumble, I thought was a bad idea because it's an hour-long investment capped off by seeing something that everybody in the WWE universe wanted to see with Cody Rhodes winning. So it made it so the crowd was dead for the next two matches. So I would have argued you should have started with the singles matches, maybe start with Bray Wyatt because it's so unique, and then you transition to the women, then another singles match, then the men's, then maybe the main event because you could have used the match kind of as the filler to get to the ending storyline, which we eventually saw. I just thought that the placement of the matches made it so the singles matches were irrelevant. And so now looking back, you could argue the two singles matches could have been put on the 2-hour pre-show. I mean, start the pre-show at 6, put it on there and get it going. But I'll say this. We now have to have the discussion, because we'll talk about the Men's Rumble here in a minute, because Bray Wyatt's overrated. That is not what the payoff is supposed to look like. And I looked at it like this from the two matches that were not involving the Royal Rumble outside of Kevin Owens. The losers of the match didn't really have anything happen to kind of elevate their story. Look, we all knew Bray Wyatt was going to win, but part of your job is to also let LA Knight feel like he is important. It felt like you just had LA Knight there to have a feud, and it was all about this weird-ass spectacle of not a pitch-black match that looked like there was some neon lights. So that's all wrong. And then the women's match, okay, it didn't need to be going down that way. I just felt like the losers of the matchups didn't, in essence, have a lot to say to kind of elevate their brand. So that's where it was kind of messed up to me. And I just think Bray Wyatt, you can't just have 3-month feuds and then a payoff that ends in a botch. That cannot happen.
Absolutely. And look, this is the thing with both of these matches that you're talking about. The Bray Wyatt LA Knight match was weird, okay? And that's fine. And with Bray Wyatt, it's going to be weird. But you have to look at what's been invested. This storyline has been going back to October when it was alluded that Bray Wyatt was coming back. And then LA Knight got wrapped up into it. And this is the first time Bray Wyatt has wrestled since his reintroduction to us, since the whole White Rabbit mystery, since the Uncle Howdy unveiling, if that's what you want to call it. We still know who Uncle Howdy is. You've had this long, convoluted story arc, and you basically got a 10-minute match, and it explained nothing. LA Knight didn't come out looking stronger. I would argue Bray Wyatt came out looking much weaker, and like you said, overrated. I felt nothing for this match. Usually a great match will make you feel something. I felt absolutely nothing for this match. I felt disdain if there was anything that I did feel for it, because I was like, you just wasted 10 minutes of my life. I could have got something else, and I didn't get any of it. It was weird. It was silly. Didn't make sense. And then you look at the Bianca Belair and Alexa Bliss match, where Bianca Belair retains her belt against Alexa Bliss. Going into this match, Alexa Bliss did nothing but say how she was going to maim and harm Bianca Belair. You get into this match, and Alexa Bliss didn't maim or harm Bianca Belair. There was nothing done to extend her character. There was nothing done to really help wrap her back up into the whole Bray Wyatt overarching story. There was nothing there to work in Uncle Howdy. Like none of it really connected. Yes, they had a screen graphic and they showed some stuff, but how did that really move the story along? It didn't. There was no payoff with this match. So what was the point of having these two matches when there really wasn't a payoff? And to bounce back to the Bray Wyatt match, you're going to have Uncle Howdy stand on top of a scaffolding, and he's going to jump down into LA Knight, and he's going to miss him by over 3 feet. There was so many botches in that match, and I get when you're trying to do something different and you're trying to do something weird and it's new, these things are going to happen. But overall, I felt like these matches were just a gigantic time suck, a gigantic waste. There was good these matches. Again, Alexa Bliss's character doesn't get moved forward. This does nothing for Bianca Belair in the grand scheme of things. Bray Wyatt, we still know nothing. It's still the same crap. And honestly, it felt like he, like you said, comes out very overrated. LA Knight, his character doesn't get moved forward. You don't get to see any real development there. So these were really bad matches that sandwiched, were actually the meat in the sandwich for a men's Royal Rumble that I think we were both happy with how it ended, and a women's Royal Rumble that I feel like it really got it right. And with the men's Royal Rumble, you have Cody enter at 30, and he wins the whole thing. I could argue that is the right call. I think it makes sense, especially him coming off the injury he had. He ends up going up against Gunther, who I believe was absolutely made this night. Gunther outlasts pretty much everybody. Gunther goes over an hour, sets a new record. Gunther comes out looking incredibly strong here. What did you make of the role that Gunther played with the Royal Rumble? And essentially, they end up having like a 7-minute match. Cody Rhodes and Gunther do, where it's just it's heavy blows, it's hard shots. It was a quick but effectively good match. What did you think of how Cody ends up winning it, and how Gunther, in my estimation, I believe he was made that night?
Yeah, absolutely. You now realize again that the Intercontinental title run that he's had has been stellar. Everybody that works with Gunther says that he is amazing. He's great to work with. He is the epitome of what professional wrestling should be. So you look at it, harkens back to the age-old Royal Rumbles, where you can also have the traditional spots, the surprise, the traditional big man spot where everybody tries to target somebody to throw them out, and you have somebody that lasts, that even potentially through losing gets over. And oh my gosh, I want to see Cody versus Gunther. That'd be great. And that's what you want to see, is you want to see characters made. You want to see the performers that were in the mid-card take steps forward. And oh my goodness, boy, does Imperium look great. It is a great, really great news for WWE to have another potential budding star on SmackDown that you can elevate. And that's what it was. And I think that it goes to show you that with Triple H's influence, his guys that get the attention a lot of times deliver. And that's what really it made you pay attention to was this character. What sucked, though, was kind of how they used Brock Lesnar. I felt like, okay,
I loved it. I loved it.
You loved that he got in there for like 5 minutes. I think that you could have done it a little bit
by
differently.
Bobby Lashley. I thought it was great.
Why?
So I'm not a huge fan of Brock Lesnar. I'm just not. I like his babyface persona more. I think it's funny. I think it's a little bit quirky. But I'm not a huge fan of Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar goes away for a long time, comes back, goes away, comes back. There's really never any consistency. He beats down a lot of guys. I don't ever feel like he necessarily puts enough guys over because that's a dude who, if you score a win against Brock Lesnar, that's a big deal. That's a monster deal. I loved it that Bobby Lashley was the guy that threw him out. And I think that was what I loved the most about it. Do you realize his tantrum that he threw at the end of it? There's a little bit of heat on him for that backstage. He was supposed to get upset. He was not supposed to rip the top off of the announcer's table, throw it into the ring. He was not supposed to pick the stairs up and smash the announcer's desk. He was not supposed to hit that referee that he ended up taking out, who got walked to the back. That referee was supposed to be the one who raised Cody's hand at the end of the night. That whole spectacle, all of that was very unplanned. They anticipated something, but they did not anticipate all of that. So just a little bit of weird, a little bit of heat on Brock Lesnar because of it. But I think what made it special for me was it was Bobby Lashley. Remember, going into this, Brock Lesnar had already F5'd Bobby Lashley twice with no response. Bobby Lashley comes out and knocks him out. I think it's fantastic. I thought that was a great part of the story. I thought that was awesome.
It's okay.
On top of that,
maybe 5 more minutes. You just need a little more destruction, maybe a couple more guys getting over, maybe set up the next feuds when he does come back. But yeah, I get it. The shock value, Bobby Lashley getting his revenge obviously makes a lot of sense. What did you think of, I thought the weirdest part of the night, and I guess now it's explained, after the fact, I didn't like the fact that Rey Mysterio got his number called and you didn't replace him. Look, if he was hurt or he's not able to show up in the Rumble, you could have had a surprise. You could have had a debuting. I think that the biggest mistake for me, my biggest critique, because you got to see how awesome the NXT involvement was with the Women's Rumble, to not have not one single NXT male show up, I thought was a little bit disappointing. Now, maybe that was known, but to me, I was hoping maybe Braun Breaker could be the guy. And I understand now, obviously after the fact, when Dominic comes out at the next spot and he's holding Rey's mask and it's storyline, that's fine. But I think you could have used it as another opportunity, maybe for a debuting star or maybe for one person, because it changed. Look, everybody wanted to see Rey Mysterio. It didn't happen. So you make a change. It's the Royal Rumble. You can throw curveballs in there as much as you want. You could have had Grayson Waller. You could have had Braun Breaker. You could have had one of those weird Australian tag team members show up there and something unusual, something different. But to have a non-entrant, I thought was disappointing.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I thought Braun Breaker would be the guy. And you're right. I thought it was a bit of a misstep with Rey Mysterio not coming out. I seen a meme earlier today where it said, you realize Cody Rhodes jumps over the top rope to essentially eliminate himself from the Royal Rumble, while Rey has necessarily not been eliminated from the Royal Rumble. So Rey Mysterio is actually your Royal Rumble winner. I thought that was kind of funny because they never did replace him. They never really did go back and explain that. I get that Dominic came out with his mask. That's fine. That makes sense. But you could have booked that completely different. You could have had Rey Mysterio going down to the ring, and you could have had Dominic attack him, and then just attack him for, what is it, the entire 90 seconds or whatever. And then Dominic's music can play. He can throw Rey into the ring. He can roll into the ring. He can then pick Rey up and throw Rey out of the ring, essentially eliminating his dad. I feel like that would have been a much better conclusion to that angle, to that bit, but it's not what we got. We did get a great spot in the middle of the men's Royal Rumble. What did you make of the Logan Paul and Ricochet spot where they both jumped up on opposing ring corners and basically clotheslined each other in the middle of the ring? I thought it was absolutely fantastic, and it was a great spot. Logan Paul never seems to disappoint when he's in the ring. There's always something big that he's doing. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, starting the show with Pat McAfee was great. Crowd gets popped. Michael Cole is surprised, and then you have
Michael
Logan
Cole
Paul.
looked like he was about to cry. He was so excited.
He was so excited. It made it fun. Now you have Logan Paul, who, like you said, never disappoints. He takes it seriously, and he's willing to try high spots. And not only is he willing to try them, he can execute it. It made the night because you're just like, oh my gosh, because, you had a lot of people that were not in the Rumble that you maybe wanted to see, but Logan Paul and Ricochet, kudos for trying that spot. And kudos for executing it. It definitely was a great spot. And, I just felt like Cody Rhodes, obviously, the moment was great to see him point to the sign, the gestures that he made, a lot of the inside wrestling gestures that you could kind of surmise from what he did. It was great. It was really, really great. Now, you look at the women and...
Oh, wait, hold on. I want to go back to Cody Rhodes and his win because you have a bit of an issue with some pictures that came out a little bit later on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ricky Starks was seen backstage, and there are photos of Ricky Starks and Cody Rhodes walking through the backstage area. Why is this such a big deal for you? Why do you have such a big issue with this?
Oh, yeah, you're absolutely right. I forgot that was something we had talked about in our group chat. Well, one, I don't have a problem with Ricky Starks being there. Okay, obviously I know that they're close, that... The idea is obviously that, you're going to support your guy and your friend and all that kind of stuff. But you, under no circumstances, cannot have any single evidence that you were there. You can't. You work for another company. So there's a big problem with that because it harkens back to how Vince treated Triple H when they did the whole, giving each other the click symbol. When Scott Hall and Kevin Nash made their way to WCW, for those of you that don't remember, the crew got together after they just wrestled and gave each other the click sign, breaking kayfabe. They
hugged it out in Madison Square Gardens after in a house show. It was crazy.
Yeah, there is such a thing as kayfabe. Okay, now it's totally gone and different now. The last semblance of that was represented by The Undertaker, but Ricky Starks works for a different company. So you can't be showing up and getting photographed. However it gets out, you can't have that being released because, one, it lends a speculation. Wait a minute, does Ricky want a contract with WWE? Is he not happy? Is he trying to get himself over? What's he trying to do there? And it is a big deal because you're starting to hear, what does Triple H talk about in the press conference afterwards? We're killing it. We're crushing it. We've made the most money we've ever made, trying to keep boosting the sale price. And now you get Ric Flair all of a sudden, out of the blue, tweeting out this week, I'm not hearing nobody talk about AEW. What's going on with WWE is amazing. They're riding this massive title wave. AEW's kind of taking some hits here, and on top of that, having your one of your top stars, is not in a situation in which you want to be having Ricky Starks, who's getting a push, show up with a different company at their show. That's all I'm saying. You can't be photographed, and I think he deserves to be punished.
So I don't think it's that serious. Look, Cody Rhodes is incredibly close with Ricky Starks. Ricky Starks was one of his students. Cody Rhodes, obviously his mentor. They're very close. They show up to the show together. I get what you're saying by him being photographed, and there needs to be something because you broke kayfabe. Look, kayfabe's been dead for a long time. Essentially, like you said, the Click killed off kayfabe when Scott Hall and Kevin Nash hugged it out with Triple H and Shawn Michaels in Madison Square Garden. So it's done and over with. Everybody understands that it's a business now. This is not like it's the 80s where it's still real to me, damn it. That is no longer a thing. We all get that it's a business, and we all get that they're basically paid physical actors. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. I do love the fact that you hold certain things so close to tradition, and that you are such a traditionalist with certain things, and kayfabe is one of them for you. I think that is absolutely fantastic. I do want to get into the Women's Royal Rumble because I thought it was incredible. I thought the Women's Royal Rumble was absolutely fantastic. I thought the way they worked it was great. You got some NXT stars like Roxanne Perez coming up. You got introduced to Chelsea Green again. I thought that was nice. But Rhea Ripley enters at number 1, and she's the last one standing when it's all said and done. On top of all that, you got to see Asuka's new character. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago on this show, about how Asuka's bringing possibly a new character back. So you got to see the reveal of Asuka's new character. And I think they did a really solid job with Liv Morgan, who entered at number 2. and she was one of the final contestants left. The last three were Rhea Ripley, who outlasted everybody, Liv Morgan, who was the second to last one. She got thrown out by Rhea Ripley in a fantastic move on the side of the ring, and Asuka, who a great way to re-debut and re-push Asuka. I thought the Women's Royal Rumble was highly entertaining. What did you think of the Women's Royal Rumble?
Yeah, it was good. Very professional. I thought that highlighting Rhea to kind of take that next step of being a performer that can start at number one and carry it. It was great. There were times where she kind of hid back and let the other women. The one spot that I hated was you debut Chelsea Green, who's a former WWE superstar, married to Matt Cardona. You realize that, okay, this is great. This is what you like. Surprises. I had a feeling she was going to be there or was going to be part of the company. You heard whispers. And did you give her AJ Styles moment? Nope. She walks to the ring, and 25 seconds later, she's out of the ring. And
she was doing 25 seconds. It was like 5 seconds.
Yeah,
she was in the ring and out of the ring in 5 seconds.
A record. I felt like that was really pointless to have, and you could have did it better with that. Other than that, I thought that Asuka's new character was great. I thought that she got over. We liked the darker version of her attire, and especially the work that she did, the craftsmanship of her face mask and her face paint was flawless. And she got over it. And she had energy, a renewed spirit, and the crowd was great. I thought that having Asuka and Liv Morgan do some things also elevated their brand. And give credit to Liv Morgan. She did some things and lasted a while too, and the right person won. Rhea Ripley is the Women's Royal Rumble winner, and she's the best woman at right now. She is one of the top females, and she's the most over, and she's the person that people want to see in the ring.
Yeah, and it was an incredibly physical match between all of the women. I think the most surprising thing was all of the photos that came out afterwards, where the ladies were showing all of their cuts and wounds and just how beat up they got in this match. So it definitely was a physical altercation between 30 of WWE's top women. I thought it was fantastic. Thought they did a really good job, really helping to boost a couple of characters. Thought it was fantastic. This all led into, I think, one of the greatest Royal Rumble moments we've had in a long time. This has been a long-term story. This has been a massive build. This has been one of the most entertaining things that we've had on TV. It is one of those things that have sucked you and I in regularly, and it is the Bloodline storyline. Roman Reigns tries to maim Kevin Owens as he defeats him and defends his championship and retains it. But it was everything that ensued afterwards, because as this match went on, Roman Reigns was just punishing Kevin Owens, bouncing his head off the back of steps, slamming him all around. And look, Kevin Owens did a great job. A lot of near falls in this one. He kept kicking out, kept coming back for more until he finally could not. Beat down that ensued after, where Roman Reigns handcuffs Kevin Owens to the ring ropes and continues to punish him. Then the whole bloodline comes out and they continue to punish him all the way up to the point where Roman Reigns gets a chair, standing in front of Kevin Owens and is getting ready to hit him. And Sami Zayn steps in front of him and is like, you don't need to do this. That's beneath you. You don't have to do it. And Roman Reigns is like, you know what? It is beneath me. I don't have to do it. You do it. And you could see Sami Zayn, who through the entire match, he was at ringside. The entire match was completely conflicted and was going back and forth on what he should do, only to turn around and take that chair and hit Roman Reigns in the back. And the arena exploded. The arena popped. And it was fantastic. Only for members of the bloodline to then jump Sami Zayn and beat him within an inch of his life, all save Jey Uso. Who Jey Uso, this was obviously the best part of all of it. Jey Uso, the guy, the one who has been steadfast against Sami Zayn the whole time, came to his defense at the trial and protected him. And then when everybody was ganging up on Sami Zayn, he walked out on his family. It was awesome. Also, this ties back to a bigger story where if you go back, you remember Jey Uso, I think it was maybe 2 years ago, Jey Uso was the one Uso who was standing opposed to Roman Reigns and his reign as the tribal chief. He was the one guy. They did such a good job tying up different loose ends and bringing it all back around. And now it sets up what's going to happen with Sami Zayn, what's going to happen with Roman Reigns, what's going to happen with Jey Uso, what's going to happen with the bloodline. There is so much here. You basically closed one chapter of a book and you opened up another one, and it's choose your own adventure because there's so much awesomeness going on here. What did you make of the ending of this match?
Quality writing, quality storytelling, and all you can say to it to give it the credit that it's due is that pop was the loudest pop probably in the decade. You know, people were talking about how loud it was, what it meant, the culmination of what a good story should tell. And like you said, exactly, you had the layers of bringing back Roman Reigns getting hit by Seth Rollins in the Shield. You had the breakdown of the family. You had, Jey Uso not being able to kind of control himself, feeling the betrayal. Solo Sikoa showing his loyalty and just instantly pummeling, Sami Zayn. And it was great, back and forth. And it was the culmination we were all looking for. And it was great. It was just absolutely great. It made it worth staying up past midnight. And even though obviously the match between Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens was okay, but many people are just going to remember the 10-15 minutes after, in which you finally got some movement in this bloodline storyline, which is going to be further told on the road to WrestleMania. Yeah,
and along that road, we've got Elimination Chamber. That's coming up next. Sami Zayn is supposed to take Reigns at the Elimination Chamber. It's supposed to take place in Montreal. That should be fantastic. Like, the crowd should be absolutely bananas for it. But on Monday Night Raw, we had Cody Rhodes, the Royal Rumble winner, come out and basically lay out a mission statement, lay out the gauntlet, tell you what he's going to do and what he wants to do. And what he wants to do is he wants to beat the shit out of Roman Reigns, and he wants to win that WWE Universal Championship. It brings up a question, because as of right now, how would you book this? Like, does Cody win this? As he was going through his mission statement, in my head, I'm like, Roman Reigns has been great. He's been a moneymaker for WWE, and his storyline has been fantastic. But Cody should win this match, right? He should, right? And I keep questioning myself, like, he should. I'm not necessarily sold that he's going to win this match. I think he should, but I don't know. So how would you book this? How would you go about this? Would Cody be the winner of all of this, or do you keep the belt on Roman Reigns? Well, how do you build this?
Yeah, in early February, Cody Rhodes is not the biggest star in the company. That's the problem. Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens just a little bit, and Roman Reigns is the biggest. But that's not to say that by the time April 1st doesn't get here, that great matches, great storytelling could propel Cody into that spot. It's good now. Cody's in that spot. He belongs. His merch is selling very well. Top 5 in the company. That's no problem. People want to come pay to see him, but you got to do a better job of elevating Cody after his injury. Because remember, he was away for a while, and everybody elevated. Seth Rollins elevated, Kevin Owens elevated, and Gunther now is in the mix as being superstars. Cody's in the mix, but he's not the top guy. So I would not be shocked if Roman Reigns continued to win, but I think that Cody telling the story of culminating winning a championship after everything he's been through, I think people want to see it, because you just have to have somebody next. I mean, 3 years is a big reign, and Roman Reigns can move on to something else. I think they're going to invest in the Sami storyline potentially with you're probably going to see the Bloodline not have the best WrestleMania, because you probably would indicate that Sami moving forward is going to tag with Kevin Owens, which is going to potentially hurt the Usos, and then, Roman Reigns. So you got to see how that progresses. But yes, I think at this point in time, Cody has to win it. That's what he came back for. I would see no way in which he doesn't come to WrestleMania final match and take down the title. It's a great memory. We all want to see the wingtip belt. We all want to see the change. And who next? The biggest star that you could get. The potential's there. And that's what you can sell with Cody Rhodes. And I want to see it. I want to see Cody Rhodes win the title. And if it's going to be anybody, it has to be Cody in my mind. But if you keep with Roman for another 6 months, it'll be interesting to see how it will play out.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Again, it is incredible, because Cody's return back has been fantastic. Then he got injured, and then him winning the Royal Rumble has really put a new spotlight back on him. And in his, like I said, his mission statement was great on Monday Night Raw. Also on Monday Night Raw, Rhea Ripley ends up challenging Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania 39. Now, I think this is fantastic. This was the direction I wanted this to go. I think you can have a great match with Bianca Belair, because they're both physically talented, and it would be a hell of a match. But I think Charlotte Flair is the right choice. They have a history. You go back to when Rhea Ripley was the NXT champ, and Charlotte went down to NXT and won the belt from her. If you know anything about Rhea Ripley, that loss crippled her. It crippled her. She basically went into a 2-year spiral trying to figure out what she did wrong and how to get her character back. And she struggled. She struggled mightily. There was an actual real-life story, real-life heat here. I love this, and I think it's fantastic. But you, Doc, you have an issue with it. Please tell me why, because I want to discuss why you're wrong here.
Yeah, because we've already seen it. I know that you can, bring a story full circle, but I think the match that can bring the most intense storyline can be taking the title off of Bianca Belair. I think that, I understand that, Rhea wants to kind of bring it full circle. You can have another memory from WrestleMania in the past, but I think the most money could be made if you tell the right story with Bianca Belair. I mean, okay, yeah, great. Rhea's going to get over on Charlotte. That's fine. I can see that. But Rhea Ripley's on Raw with the Judgment Day. So how does that factor in? Charlotte's the SmackDown Women's Champion. So I know that you can blur the lines and have her show up on both shows and all that kind of stuff. But I just thought in terms of keeping things seamless, I would have loved to have seen Bianca and Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania. That's just my preference. I think they'll tell a great match. It'll be nice. And we presume that Rhea's going to get over. But I just think it's been there, played out. And I just don't think it's as good as just that little intrigue we got when Rhea bumped into Bianca a couple of weeks back. That was cool. I just don't think we got to wait for the payoff, I guess, and I'm just not willing to wait right now.
I think you just have such a rich history with what's already taken place, and legit, you can go into the real life issues that Rhea Ripley had when she lost that belt and how it really messed her up. You can pull on that, and she can use that in the storyline. Now, it sucks because she's obviously not the babyface in this, and that would be more of a babyface angle. But you can work this out, and you can figure this out where you can really spin this, and you can really delve deep into it. And I think it would be a fantastic storyline. I think it'd be a fantastic story arc for them to pull off and for them to do. I'm interested in it. We'll see how it goes. Obviously, like you said, we'll have to wait for the payoff. Speaking of payoffs, Doc got 3 points while I got 1 point to close out our season finale of the picks. All that being said, the 3 points wasn't enough for you to close the gap. I ended up winning this season 16-11. We're going to start brand new. We're going to reset everything, and it's going to go back to 0 for calling the card and for our selections. But it's been a lot of fun, and it was great to close it out with a fantastic Royal Rumble. I do want to jump into AEW. Now, we had a fantastic opening match. It was pay-per-view quality, I would say, between Jon Moxley and Hangman Page. But coming out of this match, a couple of talking points. I want to know if you had any issues with Jon Moxley blading out in the open. In the middle of the ring on TV, he pulls his razor blade out of his mouth. Mind you, kudos for keeping a razor blade in your mouth while you fight. And basically cuts his head. Cuts his head, bleeds all over the place. You have any issues with him doing that? You talk about kayfabe, and you talk about keeping things close to the vest. This is about as blatant as it gets.
Yeah, AEW likes to push the envelope. Jon Moxley is pushing this I'm violent character. Yeah, it's not exactly keeping kayfabe, but to keep the spirit of Jon Moxley's character, I loved it. I thought it was cool. I don't think that I had an issue with it as much as many people did. I just thought it was a great match, and it kind of has a feel that these guys should just keep going and keep feuding, right?
I mean, yeah, no, it absolutely does have that feel. It does feel like this is probably going to be a best of 5 or a best of 7 series. Currently, Jon Moxley's up 2-1, but this feels like it is far from settled, especially with how this ended. But I take great issue with this. Like the whole blading thing is something that if you know anything about wrestling, you know it happens, right? But you're not supposed to see it happen. It's like a magic trick. There's like a little bit of distraction. There's a little bit of an illusion that it's still real. And this basically shit all over it. On top of it, I'm kind of tired of seeing Jon Moxley bleed. I'll be honest with you. When I seen him bleeding all over the ring, I was like, oh, cool, John's bleeding again. Like the gravitas of him bleeding has been mitigated so much because he bleeds all the time. It's unreal. Like, if you're going to get into a match with Jon Moxley, like, you have to make sure you've got like all your hepatitis background check up to date, because who the hell knows? This dude's DNA is all over the ring all the time. And I love Jon Moxley. I love his character. But the blading in the open is a monster issue for me. Do you realize? So Alyssa's come a long way with wrestling, right? We've been dating now 3 years or so. She went into watching wrestling not knowing anything about it, not really enjoying it, hated it. She's gone to SmackDown, loved it. She's gone to AEW, loved it. She enjoys watching wrestling. And I had to explain to her what happens when they bleed. She's like, oh my God, he got hit so hard he got busted open. And I was like, yeah, he did. And then I had to explain to her like how blading works and what they do. And it's become one of those things that now she knows what it is, so she keeps an eye on it, right? And she's like, oh man, he's cut himself again. And like, it's one of those things where it's a secret if you know about it, okay? But you just don't go out and sit in the middle of the ring and cut your face. Like, what is this? Is this ECW circa 1995? Like, what are we doing? I had an issue with it. I look, I have a lot of respect for Jon Moxley. I find him to be highly entertaining. I think he's great. But there are certain things in the business that you just don't do. Or if you do them, you try to protect them. And I don't feel like he did anything to protect the integrity of that part of the business. On top of it, sometimes the production for AEW is frustrating because they like zoom in on it. Like, oh, what's that in his hand? Oh, he's cutting himself in the head. Let's put this on TV. Let's put this on the big screen. It's like, no, like production team, no, don't do that. So I had a bit of an issue with it, but I do think it's going to be a long series, and I love this because there's a lot of story wrapped up in here between Jon Moxley and between Hangman Page, and this doesn't feel like it's anywhere close to being over. Like I said, do you want to see this go a couple more bouts?
Yeah, absolutely. More. Let's see where this plays out, and probably both are going to benefit from this feud. Also, two characters benefiting from feuding with each other, I think, has been Darby Allin and Samoa Joe, a violent match. And you recognize, wow, Samoa Joe gets the TV title back. It kind of lends to the booking question of why have him lose in the first place, kind of diminishing the TV title a little bit. But in the end, Samoa Joe is establishing himself as a violent dude, and Darby Allin is now going to have problems if he's ever going to try and get it back. I think the king of television angle for Samoa Joe is great. You now have to protect him. Let him have this title for a minute. And I think now kicking it off again with the feud with Wardlow was the right way to go. It was a violent match, and it was fun to see.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. It was crazy to watch these guys go, and I think it was a great story. You've got the sadist in Samoa Joe, and you got the masochist in Darby Allin. You got one guy who loves to beat and bludgeon. You got one guy who loves to get beat and bludgeoned. It was absolutely a crazy match. The way Darby Allin got ragdoll around, like he got picked up and thrown over the ropes to the outside, like hard landing, like no good. Dude came out in a sweatshirt full of tacks. It was absolutely crazy how this match unfolded. I think it's good for Samoa Joe to have this belt. I think Samoa Joe can do a good job elevating it, but you're right. It goes back to the question, why have him lose in the first place? Was it because Darby Allin was home in Seattle? Is that why? Like, is that how we're booking matches? Like, you're at home, you're going to win this? That doesn't make sense to me, especially long-term booking-wise. Doesn't make any sense to me. It's going to be interesting to see where this goes with Samoa Joe and Wardlow. Obviously, Wardlow coming back. Wardlow looks at his hair. He looks fantastic. It's weird to put him in immediately into a feud with Samoa Joe, and he might lose. That doesn't necessarily make sense. So it's going to be interesting to see where this goes and what happens here. What was your show of the week? What do you want to give the nod to before we get into some news and notes?
I want to give it to Raw. I think that on the road to WrestleMania, establishing what we're going to start to see, I think is great. And now you get to see some of the Elimination Chamber set up a little bit. I think Raw was just by a hair edges out Dynamite.
Yeah, I thought Raw was really, really good. And look, held together with that Cody promo, which I thought was fantastic. We had a lot of good matches. I thought Raw was a really good show this week. It was a lot of fun to watch. You want some news and notes?
Hit me with this week's professional wrestling news and notes. What made your list?
Got a lot. Let's get into it. How about we start with a little bit of a rumor? How about a belt design rumor? Doc, answer this for me. What is your favorite belt design in WWE history?
No doubt about it. It's the wingtip. When Cody Rhodes starts posting on social media, I get excited. Adrenaline went through my soul, baby. I love it.
So it sounds like at or after WrestleMania 39, we may be returning to an older belt design. It sounds like we might be doing the Winged Angel or the Winged Eagle belt held by Bret Hart, Hulk Hogan, The Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, and it was last held by Stone Cold Steve Austin. It is the belt that gets Doc's juices flowing. It's a fantastic belt. It would be great because, honestly, that is one of my favorite belts of all time. When I think of WWE Championship, it is that belt that I remember. So I will be excited if they're able to do this and pull this off. Now, sticking with Stone Cold Steve Austin, we have an update on his Wrestle 39 future. Speaking on Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer said, as far as Austin goes, Steve might be at the show. I wouldn't be surprised at all. He might do something on the show, but he did, in fact, turn down wrestling at the show. He was offered Lesnar. He was offered Roman Reigns. He could have named his opponent if he wanted to do it with anybody else, but he did not choose to wrestle on the show. This comes off of last year's better-than-expected match with Kevin Owens at WrestleMania 38. Now we have a similar situation with The Rock, who felt that he would not have enough time to get into the shape needed to compete at WrestleMania 39. According to Dave Meltzer, who tweeted a response to a comment about The Rock, he may show up, but he turned down wrestling. The thought going into last year was that we could have The Rock versus Roman Reigns at this year's WrestleMania. Staying with the conversation of WrestleMania 39's schedule, it's been the belief for a while that John Cena was primed for a match with current WWE United States champion Austin Theory, although Logan Paul has requested a match with Cena for himself at one point. Signs point to Paul versus Rollins at the last minute. That we've seen that kind of happen with the Royal Rumble this past Saturday, which makes sense for Cena versus Theory, which is now most likely. But either way, the point is Cena has been and is expected for WrestleMania. A new report from Variety revealed that John Cena is currently in Melbourne, Australia, filming a movie with Zac Efron called Ricky Stenicki. The report states that production will take place through February and March, which means that Cena is a little bit busy at the moment. Likely this means he won't have much, if any, time to be involved in the pre-match build-up to whatever is potentially planned for him at WrestleMania, whether that's the match with Theory or it's something else. Now, back when Cena appeared on SmackDown at the very end of 2022, Fightful reported that he filmed some content with Theory that we have yet to see. So if there is a match with Theory, Theory planned, Cena is going to be around, isn't going to be around for any of the build. It would make sense for that pre-filmed content to fill in the gaps. Now, Dave Meltzer has more info on what's actually going to take place with the WrestleMania 39 card and how it's going to look, including John Cena's involvement. Writing in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, he wrote, for WrestleMania, the locked-in matches at this point are Reigns and Rhodes for the Universal title, Charlotte Flair versus Rhea Ripley for the SmackDown Women's title, Belair versus the Chamber Winner for the Raw title, John Cena versus Austin Theory. Now, no word on whether this will be for the United States title or not. Also, Io Sky and Dakota Kai are going to take on Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler for the women's tag team match, or women's tag titles. So it sounds like John Cena is in this, and all the bases are covered. They're going to fill in the gaps with that pre-shot footage. So expect to see Cena at WrestleMania 39. A lot of news has recently come out about Hulk Hogan and his health. An update has emerged on the WWE Hall of Famer following his concerns that arose following a recent back surgery. Kurt Angle previously noted on Kurt Angle's show podcast that he was speaking with Hulk Hogan at the January 23rd Raw 30 taping. Hogan stated that he can't feel his legs and was walking with a cane. Angle said via the New York Post, Hogan had his back surgery again. He had the nerves cut from his lower body. He can't feel his lower body, so he uses the cane to walk around. Entertainment Tonight now reports that a representative of Hulk Hogan has stated that Hogan is doing well and is not paralyzed. It's also noted that that Hogan is able to walk without a cane, with the rep saying everything is okay with him. Hulk is someone with a lot of humor. So maybe it was possibly a rib, not 100% sure. You did send me a message earlier today with Hulk Hogan. I haven't had a chance to look at that. You want to divulge what was in that message?
Yeah, it's Hogan strutting, baby, doing the woo. I think that it's a rib. I think that somehow or another, maybe this got exaggerated. Hulk is fine. Hulkamania will always live forever.
All right. Hulk Hogan is fine, Doc says. Let's go. Also, Hulk Hogan says. So take the man at his word. Let's just go. Vince McMahon has another one. Yes, another lawsuit, but this one has a little bit of a twist. There are now this is the fourth lawsuit, but the key difference here is that this suit has been filed against WWE rather than just Vince McMahon as an individual. As reported by Bloomberg, WWE investor Dennis Plankin to bar McMahon from the board of directors. The suit, which was filed on January 26th, seeks internal files from WWE to investigate claims that McMahon raped and sexually assaulted employees and contractors over the course of decades, then paid nearly $15 million to keep a lid on the accusations. It was added in the suit that there are serious questions about how Vince McMahon obtained and delivered those funds to his victims. It was also mentioned that McMahon brought back two of his longtime cronies, Michelle Wilson and George Barrios, adding the apparent misconduct here is both myriad and extremely serious. The real twist here is the lawsuit is the first that it's seeking company documents. Those are those internal files that are mentioned, and the disclosure of those documents result in fiduciary breach claims. Plaintiff intends to achieve what the board wanted to, but could not in light of Vince McMahon's thuggery by initiating proceedings to bar Vince McMahon from ever serving on WWE's board, according to the suit. It's a whole lot of wordage there, a lot of verbiage. Basically, they want to uncover all of the documents that the board had, and they want to shine a light on what took place and to make sure that the board was actually doing their job, and they're trying to prevent Vince McMahon from having any say on the board. Long story short. Now, AEW may have the groundwork for a streaming deal in the works. I told you a lot of notes and news going on this week. It's crazy. In a feature on Tony Khan that appeared in Bloomberg, Kim Basson wrote, in March, Khan acquired the small but respectable pro wrestling company Ring of Honor from Sinclair Broadcasting Group for an undisclosed sum, adding a new crop of wrestlers, some intellectual property, and an extensive video library. AEW is also considering starting a streaming service, likely through a deal with its broadcast partner, Warner Brothers Discovery Incorporated. According to a person familiar with the management's thinking, who asked not to be named, last year, AEW broke $1 million in annual revenue for the first time, the person said. Currently, AEW has a multi-year deal with DAZN, D-A-Z-N, to air content in 42 markets, including Asia and Europe, currently in place. Now, on Thursday this week, news broke of the passing of WWE star, the genius Lanny Poffo, who was 68 years old. Poffo was the real-life younger brother of WWE icon Macho Man Randy Savage. He also went on to induct him into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2015. Poffo himself wrestled for WWE for 7 years between 1985 and 1992. Before that, he wrestled in the Territory era under the name Leaping Lanny Poffo. He wrestled for his dad's organization. He went on to star in movies as well as starting his own podcast, Everybody Podcasts, and Lanny Poffo did as well. It was a wrestling podcast, and it was pretty fantastic, actually. So sad day. Lanny Poffo passed away at 68 on Thursday. That's going to do it for this week's wrestling news and notes.
Man, interesting. $100 million for AEW, RIP, Lanny Poffo. You can see some of the great matches that he had. Interesting gimmick with the Genius, and many people will look back on his career fondly, and obviously had a lot of great things to say. And, it's always unfortunate when someone passes away, but a life well lived, and it's always nice to reflect on those that paved the way for what is now one of the biggest global sports entertainment companies in the world. Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSCHROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. If you've agreed or disagreed with anything that you've heard today, feel free, hit us up. We'd love to hear it. Thanks, everybody, for supporting the Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast. More and more people are in the area definitely checking in. Lots of wrestling fans. It's a big time now. This is the time to jump on the WWE AEW bandwagon as we look to WrestleMania season and AEW putting their best foot forward to try and compete with the tidal wave that is now the WWE. And it's going to be interesting because they're definitely talking a lot about money in World Wrestling Entertainment, so you know that they're trying to pump up the price as much as possible when after the Royal Rumble they're talking about sponsorship matches, they're talking about how the sellouts are producing record revenues, big-time revenue of over $300 million in the fourth quarter of 2023. WWE is doing well financially, and now let's see what that means for the company moving forward. Thank you, cuz. This edition of the Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast has come to a close. Podcasting time is over. Let's check back in next week on the Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast.